The world until now has been religious. It's been run by religion. It's been dominated by religion. That's changing. We're seeing a reversal. We're seeing people saying, we don't need religion. We don't need priests on our back telling us what to do. We don't need popes, and we don't need archbishops. We're free. And that's a very profound revolution. It's not going to involve bloodletting.
It's a revolution of ideas.
What are the main objectives of the National Secular Society?
Well, obviously, because Britain is got an established church, we need to separate that from the state. We need to have a secular state, either on the model of the French laïcité or the American, the separation clause that they have in their constitution, or maybe something between the two.
So do you think that a British constitution should perhaps be written where church and state are separated?
Absolutely. I mean, there is talk of a written constitution now, and I think it's, if it ever comes to the fore, I mean, politics is up in the air at the moment. If the constitutional debate gets going in this country, the church will try to insert itself. It always does. But I think that will be a lost cause for them. I think we will have a secular constitution.
You believe so?
Yes.
How would you like to see the National Secular Society develop over the next 10 years?
I'd like to see us be able to move away from the atheism, the fighting for atheism, that a lot of our members seem to think we're there for. They seem to think we're part of Dawkins Incorporated, that it's our job to promote the rational, atheistic, scientific worldview. And although we support it, I don't think that's what the NSS is about. We're there actually as a political pressure group looking to create this secular constitution and to remove the privileges that religion has from our public life. So you wouldn't have an established church, you wouldn't have faiths running schools at the public expense, you wouldn't have Catholic hospitals or anything like that. You would have a completely neutral public sphere, as they have in France. You can't go to a hospital in France and say, this is, I'm a Muslim, I want to be treated differently, because they won't do it.
How long did your atheist phase last?
Oh, I should think about 10, 15 years.
And when did it finish?
About 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's only since the whole topic, Dawkins sort of unleashed this great flood of atheism and debate about atheism. And it was fascinating, but I have reached the conclusion that it's sterile and that it can't go anywhere. Somebody came to me and said, is this what secularism is about? Because I was all, into the God bashing. I was thought, it's great this, you can really let rip, and I've got a platform to do it from now. But then I started to think, I'm president of the National Secular Society, and is this really what I'm supposed to be doing?
So what do you say to people who say that atheism is a religion?
I say they don't know what they're talking about. Atheism is not a religion. How can it be a religion? It's just, a lack of belief in God. There are philosophies that are attached to atheism, like humanism, which you could say is a kind of pseudo-religion or proto-religion. And I don't regard myself as a humanist.
You don't?
For that reason, because I suddenly found somebody saying to me one day, that's not a very humanist thing to say, when I voiced an opinion that was rather harsh.
Right.
And I said, who decided what is right for a humanist to say? And suddenly I realised that they got pamphlets about what humanists believe. I thought, no, I don't want this.
So that's becoming a little dogmatic itself.
Absolutely, it becomes a kind of religion itself.
What's your view on faith schools?
Well, there are several objections, the first of which is the ghettoization of children. we need to break down the walls of those ghettos that form naturally. And one of the ways is for children to get to know each other. Very early on, there's been some research done into the way children, very young children, react to each other. And it turns out that until they're about 5 or 6, they're not actually aware that they're different from each other. They're not aware of colour and religious differences and cultural differences. They don't make those distinctions. They judge their friends on whether they are friends, whether they like them or not. After that period, they start to pick up what's happening around them. So if their parents are racist, they will pick up, she's black, or he wears funny clothes, or I don't like his name. And I think that's when the problems begin. And by categorizing children by their parents' religion and saying you are a Muslim and sticking them in a school that drills that into them every moment of the day, and not so much in Christian schools, but it does happen. There is an element of indoctrination. I think that is entirely the wrong way to structure society. We've got to get young people together to make cross-cultural friendships and relationships. We can't allow them just to be separated. I think faith schools are an abomination, really. The very concept of them.
Should free expression have any limitations?
Yes, but they have got to be very, very few and far between. I think there's something to be said for the libel laws in the sense that if you ruin somebody's reputation by lying about them to the extent that they can't make a living, then that should be illegal. But beyond that, I think it really has to be open season. We're at the beginning of the revolution, and I think it's necessary for people to be provoked, to be challenged, even insulted and offended and satirized. And whatever means are used to do it, I think are legitimate.
Do you consider the comedian Pat Condell's speeches on Islam to be too antagonistic?
They're very forthright, shall we say. And if you listen carefully to what he's saying, it's actually quite sensible. It's quite reasonable and rational. And he's not anti-Muslim. He's anti-Islamist. He hates the head-banging extremists in the way that we all do, but he is prepared to say it.
Do you believe, as does Geert Wilders of Holland, that Islam is a threat to the Western world?
I think Islamism is a threat. That is to say, the politicization of Islam. Some people would argue, of course, that Islam is a political system as well as a religious system, and indeed it is in some places. But I think we could create an Islam in Britain that is about faith and it's not about politics. There are schools of Islam that take that view, and I think we could encourage them to dominate rather than making allowances constantly for these Islamists, the politicians who want to impose Islam in its strictest Wahhabist form onto people who don't want it.
And finally, how can people get involved in and promote the secularist cause?
I think you need to get involved in the community. You have to become an MP, become a councillor, become a member of your school's board of governors. Whatever it is, get involved in somewhere where you can make secularism count and you can make its influence felt. That's what religion does. You've got religious people dominating Parliament because they're prepared to stand as MPs. You've got them dominating local authorities because they're prepared to be councillors. And in schools, similarly, we've got to put out secularism into effect as a philosophy.